Okay, so thanks guys for joining me. My name's Burly. Cain. I'm the State Director for Americans for Prosperity, or a nonprofit around the country, and we're headquartered in Albuquerque here in the state of Mexico. I've been here for 6 years running the chapter, and got a great team. We're down on upheld. You guys want to come by and see our new office. We have a mixer tonight at 6 o'clock. We do our monthly get to know us, so please come by. You're all welcome for hors d'oeuvres and cocktails. And freedom, and no PowerPoint. That was timely. It was like right when I was, let's see. Okay, good. This is a serious introduction, Mike. Okay, good. Sorry, guys. Man, that thing is touchy. Okay, so certainly working hard. Many people are trying to find private options. And I'm an outcome of that. My mom homeschooled me, 45, homeschooled my 3 kids. They're under 3, so there's just a lot of fun right now, usually. And but my brother and I went through homeschool here. It was very tough. Back then, it was not an easy thing to do, and some courageous parents took that journey. And a lot of courageous parents today are seeing that they need to take other journeys. A lot of creative outcomes you're seeing in the country are happening in the private options. It's where you see a lot of the opportunity to take a run at something a new way, and it's really outside of the box, and it's really where you're seeing dramatic results. So my goal in the flyer, the handout you guys all have, is to walk you guys through how we can learn everywhere. Okay, so the core of this idea is education, right? We're all here to find ways to get kids more opportunity. Here's a mission statement that we kind of look for at AFP and with a number of partners. All students deserve the opportunity to discover, develop, and deploy their unique passions and talents. One thing we see that's great about private options and in the public schools as well is, but the private options are giving kids the chance for their passion to come forward, to be identified, and then surround that passion with talent and skill sets. And that anchors that passion throughout their life in a way that they can contribute to society and have that mutual benefit interaction with their community and drive more innovation and things we see when we're able to have that entropy. So my next slide is a 2-minute video from Stand Together. I recommend you go look at this. It's a fantastic conversation about the Khan Academy in particular and other pieces. There's some great entities out there who have born from necessity come to bear on the marketplace, and they're putting up a real conversation against what we're seeing in other ways that we know most of the resources are going to. So the great thing you're seeing is that option for kids to really think outside the box, for teachers to really think outside the box, and for parents also to be a part of that. So in that conversation, if you'll slide with me to page 4, education, instead of limiting families to a one-size-fits-all approach, when it comes to education, we should expand their available choices so they can customize their students' educational options in ways that best suit their unique needs. And the standardized model that we have all been swimming in is pretty tough. It's pretty complex, and it means a lot of people, parents particularly, have very little understanding of what options are, how they could make a difference. They know that there's a problem. I think there's a lot of conversation about apathy in parents, but how many times can you go to your school and say there's a problem before you say, I can't deal with this because I care about this? Every time I say this is failing, they tell me, hey, I'm sorry it doesn't work for you, but you got to stay here and you got to stick it out. There are no options, but the reality is there's a ton of options. And those parents getting that knowledge and that power to help their children is really what is going to drive significant innovation. You're seeing it all over the place with these students in these innovative private options where they're really succeeding. You have time and again examples where students who are not successful in the standardized model flourish when they have a passion forward and they start to pay attention and they start to come alive. So what you see in the standard conversations around it is a third of the students are not, they're flourishing in the standardized model. A top third are not bright and they can get a ton more out of it, but they can't get the attention to do it. And then the lowest third are really not successful because nobody's paying attention, nobody's taking the time to get their connection to passion. It's funny how you send them to the right option, you send them to the right school, and it's about science. All of a sudden, the science class and their passion for science, they start caring about reading because they want to read the textbook on physics. And that passion-forward conversation is really what's working. So a lot of innovative approaches to get kids connected where their passions are, and then find a way to give them a surrounded system of their tools and talent systems to anchor the passion and take a hold of it, let them run with it. So the next slide here is a lot of the video. And again, I recommend you watch it. It autoplayed for me when I made this, and I apologize, somehow it didn't translate. This is a 5-minute video, and it does a great job of just thinking outside of the paradigm. And if you have parents or people who are trying to come alongside you, or you're trying to get your head around how to have private options, how to have choice in the private sector, this is a great video. These are great conversations to have and partner with people who really have been thinking about this for a good while and thinking about how to fund it, thinking about how to start it, thinking about how to scale it, and how to focus it. And so there's a lot of good options out there for that. This is about a 5-minute video, and it's pretty succinct, and it gives you some compelling understanding of the stories that are happening. It's not theoretical, it's reality. A lot of students who fail are having a lot of fun by going outside into the private sectors. So what are unboundaries that we see without every kid? That option provides every child their best potential. We break the barriers for them so they can take off and flourish. And that's our goal, is to find every kid. Some kids do flourish. 1/3 of the students are flourishing in the public system as it's made, but 2/3 are not. So we need other choices, and they're flourishing out in the world of options and private sector market-driven innovation. Second is we need no more lines. These children need to have an option to get to it right when they need it, because 5th grade is only 1 year in their life. Once it's over, it's gone. And that time in their life is important for everybody, particularly their parents and those kids, so they need that right away. Education your way is something we need to see, and that's just about having options for children. And that's what so many of these private options give, is they give us a real understanding of what the passion is for the student, how to do it. And then learning how to be everywhere. And during COVID, you saw a tremendous choice excuse me. A lot of parents who didn't have anything to do, didn't know what to do with their kids because the schools just stopped teaching kids. And so they just went to work. They eventually started saying, all right, we're going to do it ourselves. And so we saw a lot of really cool innovation come from that, and we'll go through that as well. So family, every kid. Families should be able to direct education funding on behalf of their children. That's a paramount idea that we want to anchor for every child. And so inside the private sector, you're seeing that flourish. It's from its origin designed for the child. And certainly it's a market-driven idea, so parents who really care about their kids can see their passion if they have the knowledge of what schools are doing what, right? That marketing is out there to say, hey, if you're this type of student, if your passion is here, come over here. Come to us. We know how to work with your skills, your interest, your passion, and you can flourish here. We have lots of students who are, and they also become adept at understanding a student who has a perception that they're not gifted, they're not talented, they don't know how to learn. But as soon as they become passion forward, instead of sitting in the chair that they're bored in for 8 hours, they become alive and they get going on their passions and they start to flourish. And all of a sudden physics, which is this boring, stupid thing, is interesting because it's the gateway to their passion. And that becomes something that really catalyzes the outcome. So fund of every kid, which is something a lot of groups are working on, a lot of people are working on. So if you guys have ideas, there's a lot of groups out there who are starting to put that money to work for you guys and find it to help you guys. No more lines. Oh, this guy's timing out at me, huh? Okay, no more lines. Students and families should be able to choose their public school no matter where they live. This is a little divergent from the conversation today, but we like to see open enrollment, other ideas that let kids in the public system Many students are in there, right? 90% of them have options to go to other schools and have that market competition inside the public option. And so there's other options like charters and traditional schools that are public and funded, that magnets that they can go to, that they may start to develop some of that choice. Just it's a core understanding for us is we do see that public school is not an enemy. It's a conversation that supports our students, and a lot of them are there. But we want this dramatic conversation to be there for the students who are ready to leave and want to go to the private sector, and we're seeing incredible results there. Education your way. I'm sure to maximize that screen. All students enrolled in any form of school, including private, micro school, or homeschool, should be able to access public schooling on a course-by-course basis and for extracurricular activities. So this is where you kind of find the hybrid conversation. So, well, homeschool is outside. I'm homeschooling my kids. And many of those students stay outside of public schools. But there's conversations around the country where those public resources that we all share, the burden of putting forward, are also a place where our students can go to tap into those resources on some layer and find options to give them the pieces they need that would be really complex for them to build, especially with all of their resources going to fund the public system. So that's a fun conversation about the 4 key priorities we're trying to see for students. And then the last one is learn everywhere. And learning everywhere, students learn everywhere all the time. They deserve credit for learning, no matter where it happens. When I ran for office in 2012, one of the things that opened my eyes as a homeschool student was a young lady at a home who had a son who was learning through homeschool, and she was very upset that he had zero ability to have any credit in the system that all the colleges use. And understandably, as a person who went through that, I ended up in a private school, but I would have been that kid, right? And many kids are that child who is stuck. They're dramatically more successful, many of them, and they're not allowed to go to college. So that is a place where we will work hard to make sure that the laws and regulations are there to support every child. However they're learning, if they're mastering skills and talent sets that need to be reflected as they advance through their education journey into higher education or into the skilled marketplace, there's a way to identify that, catalog that, capture that. And that helps everybody who is looking to have a productive society. Certainly the kids who are in the private options, and they need a way to reflect what they've gained and how they can approach the marketplace. And so just know as we're out there gaining traction in the private system, that there is a lot of work to do those 4 things, to give options for everybody and success for everybody who's using that system. So let's go through a couple of the options that you have in the private choice. I apologize, that blue is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I'll read through it. The education savings accounts, I'm going to go through each one real quick, and then I'll go into a little bit of depth about each one. So you can see the different categories of private options that are generally available or could be approached and been passed in a number of states and are functional and very high level. The education savings account is probably the most, is one big conversation right now around the country. Number of places are passing those and they're successful. School vouchers, tax credit education savings accounts, tax credit scholarships, individual tax credits and deductions, homeschooling, online learning, hybrid homeschooling, town tuitioning, which is a very small niche thing in the Northeast, personalized learning and learning pods, and then microschooling. Was anybody here, any of these new to anybody here? You guys seen all these before? Yeah, it's an abstract thing they do in the Northeast because of the way it was designed a long time ago. So I almost didn't include it because it is such a niche thing for the Northeast. So I didn't know about it until I started digging into it. And tutoring is a huge part of it. Absolutely. It's a great part of it. You know, having people who are mentors and guides for those. Certainly with parents, you're not going to have people who are, my mom was not great at math, was not great at teaching me math. But I learned well by having other people come into the conversation. So, well, to put it on the page, it certainly is a good part of the conversation to have a tutor or system of tutors And the more you have private options, particularly in the micro schools and the homeschool systems, you're going to need tutors. You're going to need a group of people who augment the conversation and allow for the students to have a network of mentors and people they can go to for guidance, and also to approach their skill set or their passion. You know, if you have somebody at the lab, which we're lucky to have too, very rare, it's great to have that. You can have people who are astrophysicists who might be really excited to help kids understand where you go in life as you approach physics, or, you know, Tesla or SpaceX and all the, I'm going to go to Mars. Why not? So education savings accounts. ESAs allow parents to withdraw their children from public district or charter schools and receive a deposit of public funds into government-authorized savings accounts with restricted but multiple uses. Those funds, often distributed to families via debit card, can cover private school tuition and fees, online learning programs, private tutoring, community college costs, higher education expenses, and other approved customized learning services materials like tutoring. Some ESAs, but not all, even allow students to use their funds to pay for a combination of public school courses and private services. This is probably the biggest, I don't know if it's the most used, but it's certainly very prominent in the conversations and policy around the country. You can see here we drafted a bill about 4 years ago, which we're working on to make sure it's the best fit for the state and other options. But we're looking many. Every state is looking at this as an option. You can see here a map that I grabbed from EdChoice, and you can see the states that have it right now. Currently, I think there's 13 states that have ESAs in place, and there's a lot of conversations in almost every state legislature in the country around how to use these, what they do, and what portion of the population they work for. As a broad scale conversation, there's no certainty this is the silver bullet. I don't know that there is a silver bullet for this. It's about letting the market go to work and find the best options. But this certainly provides 80-90% of students a quick ability to get the money and resources they need to go toward the private options that you guys are building. And so it's a pretty big conversation, usually, has a lot of policy and implications, and a lot of people come to the table to talk about it when you get to the brass tacks of politics. School vouchers. Vouchers give parents the freedom to choose a private school for their children, using all or part of the public funding set aside for their children's education. Under such a program, funds typically expended by a school district would be allocated to participating family in the form of a voucher to pay partial or full tuition for their child's private school, including both religious and non-religious options. Another good option, certainly a number of states have used it. Something to look for. We have 14 states, 2 districts, and 2 territories, or territories with vouchers. And certainly an adopted option. I think it was an earlier concept than ESAs really ever came to bear. It certainly is still an option for a number of places. And it does work. For some kids, it's a great option. You can see here, sorry, I didn't get the map up. This is the 14 states that currently have vouchers in place. All right, tax credit education savings accounts, or ESAs. A tax credit ESA, it allows taxpayers to receive full or partial tax credits when they donate to nonprofit organizations that fund and manage parent-directed K-12 education savings accounts. Families may use those funds to pay for multiple education-related expenses, including private schools, school tuition and fees, online learning programs, private tutoring, community college costs, higher education expenses, and other approved customized learning services and materials, and roll over unused funds from year to year to save for future education expenses. Some tax credit ESAs, but not all, even allow students to use their funds to pay for a combination of public school and private services. So you can see they're starting to become a large connection to many different slivers of conversation of options that you can run at. In the tax scheme you have to work in the political scheme you're thinking through to make sure that those resources that are in the public conversation that the tax base is already allocating can be used for students in ways that help them and give them options. I think, yeah, 3 states have this very particular ESA. The next one is a tax credit scholarship. The tax credit scholarships allow taxpayers to receive full or partial tax credits when they donate to nonprofits that provide private school scholarships. Eligible taxpayers can include both individuals and businesses. In some states, scholarship-giving nonprofits also provide innovation grants to public schools and/or transportation assistance to students choosing alternate public schools. These are pretty widely used, 22 states, and I think it's an easier conversation than some of the other ones because the ESA runs into everybody wanting, a lot of people want to do it. I think there's 1,000 people a day right now in Kansas that are going toward the conversation. So it's certainly, a lot of students are looking at these options around the country and applying for them, but I think one of the biggest barriers that we have is that nobody knows they exist. And that's the biggest problem. A lot of parents don't realize they have to apply for it, and a lot of parents don't realize they exist. And so getting the word out is tough. I think it's a big part of the conversation, getting everybody aware of what's going on. So the individual tax credit and deduction is the individual tax credits deductions allow parents to receive state income tax relief for approved educational expenses, which can include private school tuition, books, supplies, computers, tutors, and transportation. That's just a pretty clean, simple tax conversation. And we have 10 states currently that have individual tax credit deductions. Let's see, we've got homeschooling, one of my favorites. Homeschooling is an alternative form of education for children outside of public or private schools. Typically within their own homes, homeschooling is regularly different from state to state. And I mean, homeschooling was how everybody did it for a long time, and then they started to regulate, right? So it's an interesting thing to unpack, redoing what you've always done. So certainly parents are pretty good at this. Education can get much better at home if parents have the tools and resources they need to do that. Homeschooling is also has a developing conversation around hybrid homeschooling, which is building up of a group to have its own category now. And hybrid homeschooling is when you have that interplay, splitting their time between traditional public school or I guess a private institution and their home. So they have a place to go for that specialized learning. Like I probably would have loved to have Khan Academy or a tutor for me when I was learning math as a kid, instead of catching up when I got to the right place where they had those resources. So that's a really interesting thing. It's that evolving conversation around how you take the market, just let it run and let the resources go. So the hybrid option is very helpful for some parents who are in a situation that they want to do most of it, but they need options to help them with the pieces they don't understand. And then online learning, which is an avenue for many, and that might be that pure Khan Academy conversation or others like it, where you can go to a world-class academy like Khan, particularly built on certain subjects, but gaining steam at everything as we have the internet exploding around us, and AI telling us how everything works. It's pretty amazing, by the way. Online learning allows students to work with their curriculum and teachers over the internet in combination with or in place of traditional classroom learning. Online schools can be public or private. Families may also use some educational choice options such as ESAs and vouchers to pay for online and virtual schooling. Some example again, in some states you get the $12,000 as an ESA. You can take it and pay for God. You can take it and pay for some other version. I don't know, NASA Online Academy. I don't know what it would be, but whatever your child needs to flourish, where they're going to really take off and they're begging you to spend their time on. That's where they're going to take off and learn things in a way that they wouldn't otherwise because they're motivated by the subject itself. They're going to go to school versus you're trying to convince them to sit down and pay attention. Okay, so we also have micro schooling, which I think, from my understanding, at least from my knowledge, it came to me during COVID. That's when I first started learning about it. Microschooling is the reimagining of the one-room class schoolhouse, where school sizes are usually fewer than 15 students of varying ages, and the schedule and curriculum is tailored to fit the needs of each class. This model of schooling can operate in either public, private, or charter schools, or separately on its own. And this is kind of really opening up everything. And everybody's going into their own little world of what they want to do microschooling around. And it's an evolving landscape, and I think it's moving pretty fast. And that is a good thing to see, because you're reimagining a lot of the things that are happening and letting it happen quickly. And that's what innovation needs. It needs to be able to move with ease through the barriers that you see. If students need this today, we don't want to make that happen 10 years later for the next generation. We want to make it happen this year for that student. And so the adaptability is really cool in microschooling. There's a number of, again, grants like VELA and others that are doing things that provide options for schools, microschools, and other options like that. So the key takeaways on microschooling are: policymakers should assist families, especially low-income ones, who want to send their children to microschools by supporting education choice programs. COVID-19 spurred a dramatic rise of microschools or pandemic pods as school districts remain closed and desperate parents explored alternative education options. And this is, I'm sure, happened many times. People just got on Google and said, help, right? And those who were innovative and did it for themselves also found a way to connect to other people and provide options. And so you have a truly free market outcome that started to see happen because there was no options. Microschools make it easier for parents to tailor individual learning needs for their children, and they are often less expensive than traditional public school or private school. And the trivia question of the day: what is town tuition? Oh, it's out. Okay. Yeah, town tuitioning. Generally speaking, town tuitioning allows students to live in towns that don't have district public schools to receive their per pupil education tax dollars to pay tuition at a neighboring town's public school or a private school of their choice, sometimes even across state lines, for families who live close to state borders. This type of school choice functions much like a school voucher, and only a handful of rural states in the Northeast use it. In the place like New Mexico is the 5th largest state in the country. It's the 5th lowest density per mile. It could be something you think about here, where you have districts that somehow would play into something like this, but ultimately it's just an interesting outshoot, or from the rural tiny states in the Northeast like Maine and New England areas. So that's the general conversation that I have about the options out there. There's certainly more, and this is a really diverse area where you see a lot of options for people in the private sector. It's really exploding. COVID was a great catalyst for this, from what we've seen, and certainly many of you probably know more about this than me. And it's certainly, you probably see this firsthand. COVID provided a lot of parents with a need, forced them to have to come to the marketplace to find an option. And some of you guys are here to make that option better, and I really commend you for it. And we want to work with you guys to help you in catalyzing what you're doing and providing it as an option for more families and more students. So with that, I'll just leave it 45. Man, I'm on time. That's awesome. You guys are going to be on time for lunch. Good. The videos were really cool. I think they really would have helped set the tone much better than I did. But I'll get those to you guys and encourage you guys to watch them. I'll have the team here send it out to everybody who's on the list. So you guys have those and can watch those. There's a number of great resources that stand together, and Yes Every Kid, who we work with often, and Ed Choice and others. So I encourage you guys to dig in. There's a ton of resources. There's a ton of philanthropy around this space right now. Everybody in the education choice space knows that the private market is where it's really hot right now. So if you guys have the next cool idea, we'll take a run at it and have fun with it. What questions you guys have for me or somebody else in the audience who's a better guide than I am? For your knowledge, I spend most of my time in the grassroots, policy, lobbying, politics side of this. and I used to be a policy director, so I can nerd out. I'm a jack of all trades these days, so please.
Because put money into childhood learning
Yes, ma'am.
category, what is coming down the line for parents who are putting their children in daycare? He supposedly
The parents who are in the public pre-K program?
they're in the key of now. It's hard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, currently our stance on pre-K is that the science is not settled on it. So we kind of just are waiting to see how that plays out from my understanding of the place it is. But if there's options for students that young, I'm not actually aware if they are yet. If they can augment pre-K yet, I imagine they might be able to, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't know if I'm certain that, if people are paying attention and think education really works best at a pre-K level, that there are some private options that are trying to cater to that learning environment. So I would say that I'm sure there's a couple of market actors who are looking at pre-K resources. And I imagine if you have resources in state where assets from public dollars are going in like an ESA, they could certainly be available. It's just depending on how they wrote the bill.
Probably absolutely, and they are moving forward into so-called early education model, where parents are taking to daycare, and then it's one of the daycare centers. So it's getting actually older than that, because I understand that education may not be ready for it, but the medical system is, because they know what happens when the child is born to age 3, and what on there. And I don't believe there are enough building childhood daycare centers that we are looking at to make sure that they are not indoctrination. And I've seen them all over town, and I'm hopeful that people on our side, parents' side, you'll wake up and be looking at that, because it's legal, right?
And certainly we want to see the parents, the ones that directly involved in the conversations about where their kids go. And those resources on ESA, if it were passed here, which it's not, it's a conversation in the policy discussion. If it was a healthcare issue, I noted a little bit, it would probably go into the healthcare side. But if it's an education-related resource and ESA is available for all the students, it would probably be something that you could allocate parts of the students' money toward some other tangential education effort that you're looking outside of the public system. Depends on how they build it, really.
In the public system, it has been funded. It's just in working where it's happening now, because they're calling it education.
Yeah.
As far as those facilities,
Yeah.
we are going to get towards an education.
Right. Yeah.
They are on
Certainly, there is an interest in public K through pre-K by actors in the marketplace. So, yeah. Yes.
If they're established curriculum, that's beautiful for them. I know it's reported open. There's the 3-year-old things. Thanks.
It's a good question. I did not know the answer. Yes, sir.
Just one kind of humor ESA is Colorado Denver, which is a deep blue municipality, just approved $5 million education savings out for students in Denver public schools, and it's $1,000 for student use for out-of-school activities. So it's just, it's interesting that, the ESA compensation isn't just on one it is just a sort of issue of
Sure. Yes.
really where it begins, community of parents. But for some reason, it's positioned the light and made everybody could buy into.
Yeah. Our polling is not exactly this, but it's roughly that 80% of the country really wants this when they understand it. They want to see the ability to fund their students the way they know they need it. Whether it's an ESA or vouchers or any other thing, if there's some well-designed mechanism to let resources go toward the child and let the parents stay connected to how it is used and what they need, 80% of parents, and that crosses, it's all the paradigms of politics. Very powerful. And I think it is gaining steam, and it's going to be a very strong part of the future as parents realize that the model of learn exactly how we tell you to has been really let go a lot of students' outcomes, to put it nicely. And it's a great option to have that student forward focus.
We have it in Mexico, but not deep. Hey, Michael, where are we on that? Being able to achieve on the police to tax the pay.
There's certainly a lot of conversation. We're talking about open enrollment, and ESAs do have an interest. There's a pretty strong, recently the Catholic school came on board with options and choice. There's a bigger growing conversation that really anything you do in lobbying is takes time. Legislators need to understand what's going on. They don't understand what these are. Parents don't understand what it is. There's an old adage in policymaking, it takes you 3 years to pass bills. And that's not even necessarily because it's not wanted. It's just there's a process of learning and understanding and everybody coming to terms with it. So there's some early, easy conversations where kids can go between schools in public school, or they can look at bigger, broader programs where they have a true option to go outside of the public school. That's going to take public education. It's going to take, sometimes you have entrenched actors in the system who don't want to change it, and they have to do hard work to get the community to realize that they need a different option in the way they run the things they're doing. When you talk to people door to door, they want to see these things happen. So I can't put a number on it. I wish I'd work at that. I have an idea that we can get it done within the next 10 years and get a really strong option in New Mexico for students to really have freedom to learn as their passions drive it. Yes, sir.
It just seems to me that a lot of what we talk about today, in terms of how to make siege campus, is really going to be an organization.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I've worked with it in Mexico. I have a school association. So that's the school. But to me, it seems like we have all these different groups. And everybody could come together. But somehow, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is this your organization that's going to say, hey, we are willing to people on set have we fund things with you? Or is that for that all school association? How do we do this so that we can move forward?
It's a great question. And it does take everybody getting on the same page that we need these freedoms. And it doesn't have to be the exact same systems, but there's a lot of places we can go together. And that is the big work that we're trying to do, is put everybody on a partnership right now. And it takes a lot of manpower. It takes a lot of woman power. It takes a lot of people at the door, a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages, a lot of discussions with parents. This is just a learning curve. As there's an awareness, there is a transformation. That knowledge of what you can do with student outcomes there's transformation in society, and you'll see a tipping point. But to your point, that's what we do every day, is knock doors. I have people out every day talking to people door to door about their passion for education. And so the really is the hard work right now. We're seeing around the country, great things happen when organizations and everyday citizens that are looking at this learn together how to do this and then push as a cohesive effort. We've seen it in a number of states. And so we do training on that, by the way. I'd love to help you guys for free. If you guys have a group of 20, 50 people, we'll train them and we'll do it for free. We'd love to do it, teach them everything they need to know to work with the groups and work together or work on their own efforts. And that's what we do every day. We have drinks and hors d'oeuvres tonight at 6. Anybody wants to go? At our offices down in Upheld. So we'd love to see you guys attend and say hi, and we do that every month. We got about 5 minutes left until lunchtime. Does anybody else have any thoughts, questions? Yes, sir.
We're seeing a whole lot of difficulty with the collegiate level of student loans payback. Is there any kind of market in the secondary or primary education look to love?
Well, I think there's a number of these market-driven systems in here that were talked about today that you can look through that are alleviating the cost. And some of them even let you say you get $10,000, $12,000 a year, or during COVID, they were getting $24,000 a year in New Mexico, but that was the cost. Say it's $12,000, you can, and you only spend 5, some of the ESAs and other mechanisms roll it over. So you get to take the money and, the $7,000 that you didn't spend becomes a larger pool of money over time. And then you've got $50,000, $100,000 sitting there for your post-secondary education. Well, that might be trade school, those grants. There's lots of other options out there for students. And I think that's becoming a pretty great thing. You're seeing a ton of funding options for students that are in schools, teachers, parents. We have other partner groups that we work with, and even sister organizations that we work with that have developed curriculums for parents, things like that. So mitigating some of the cost, at least. And the bigger question about loan payback, that is a political big one. Anything else, guys? Yes, ma'am.
So the legislature in New Mexico passed the qualified education expense 529 savings in New Mexico, so that up to $10,000 a year in expenses can be paid to pay well tuition.
Uh-huh.
But it has to be within the New Mexico Education Trust Board type of things.
Yeah.
We started one in another state and then moved. How does that work?
I don't know legally on that. You'd have to talk to an attorney, or we could probably find out from one of our policy people. If you want to connect with me, I might know the answer to that. But certainly wouldn't want to give you legal advice. It's also not something I'm trained in.
So is there a list somewhere that I can find that you know of the New Mexico Education Trust Board's list of qualified 529 fund managers?
I don't have it, but I'm certain it's public. It's a public body of knowledge, and it's just, I can get you the link for that. You shoot me an email on that. Yeah, it's public knowledge.
Rebecca did a session on this, and they recorded it. I think you weren't able to go with that one, so I had
Okay.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, Rebecca Dow is very good at the state funding, and yep. Yeah, she's a wealth of knowledge. So talk to her as well.
Sharon,
Who is it?
Carolyn, about it.
Yep.
3 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay.
3:00. So yeah, guys, I spend a lot of my time in the catalyst and move things forward. There's a lot of good conversations about which policy would fit best for New Mexico, and that takes all of us working together. But getting on the same page about taking action is a big part of it too. So I recommend highly that you guys stay involved, stay active, take steps every day, push for more options and more choice for your kids, and more parents will love this when they realize. And they step beyond the false choice that this is about one party or another, and this is about every kid. So I thank you guys for coming today, and you guys enjoy lunch.